I've played the World of Warcraft for kinda long time, but the thing is that I've never played the classic version of WoW or any previous expansions to it. And with the TBC anniversary arrived, I think it is a great opportunity for me to master this expansion and try the classic WoW for the first time in my life. Which is kinda funny because when the Burning Crusade originally released, I probably wasn't even my parents' to-do list yet. So hope you stay with me because this is the Mastering WoW Classic for the first time. Upon my arrival on the character creation screen, I was thinking about the race for a long time, but the Blood Elves was my pick. And yeah, of course, after thinking about the class, I came up with the Mage, because I heard that they can do some scary things more classic. I made the most original name for the Mage, and I jumped into the game. I picked up my first quest, I started to throw these fireballs into these monoworms and hit them down with my staff to death, and after getting my first level 2, I then accepted all possible quests and bought my first spell in order to be somewhere in this game.
The essence.
I went straight up to complete all the quests. The first task was collecting some kind of belts from the Spring Crowd Cubs, and after massacring them and getting my first badass looking dress, I then moved on collecting the Solaniel's Journal and gathering Arcane Silver, and that's when I ran into the quest where you have to mana trap the worms, but the problem was the spell cooldown, which meant waiting half of my playtime for it to be ready. So I waited for a long time and waited and waited. But anyways, once that was finally done, I continued with Solania's Belongings quest. I grabbed the herb, collected the Scrolls of Scourge Magic, and even checked out the Shrine of Dothrima. And after completing all of these quests, I got the level 4, which gave me the possibility to not spend my last pennies on water. That was the first reason why I picked up the Mage also, and I also unlocked my first Frostbolt spell. After quickly imagining the potential of my mage, I ran into the forest to complete the aggression quest by slaying a few Tenders and feral Tenders. I then got my first new stuff and slain Philandrus for his hat, and with the studies are basically finished, it was time to move on to Falconwood Square. But I accepted all possible quests. One had me loot an Arcane course from Arcane Patrollers, another required me collecting unstable mana crystals from some small little boxes, and I also had to deal with some wretched urchins, which as I later learned used to be Blood Elves. And after completing all the quests, I got a couple of new spells like Fire Blast, which became my favorite spell because you don't have to wait an entire lifetime to cast the spell. And after spending some time in the Eversong woods, I realized that it gotta be one of the best looking study areas in the game, especially when comparing to some deserts. I eventually stumbled across a group of elves in the Ghostlands where Ranger Jaela sent me off to deal with some plaguebound pillagers. While walking on the Denossian intrusion quest, I ran into another objective, taking down Monovryth and Monostalkers, which by the way will later become my absolute worst enemies. After taunting this Denossian scout, I quickly killed him, and he dropped some strange envelope, which actually gave me the quest, which led me all the way back to the Falconwood Square, where I ended up escorting the suspicious looking dwarf. And to be honest, I didn't trust him from the very first glance, and yeah, I basically killed him like with no hesitation because he was a spy. Moving on to the next area, I wrapped up the Soaked Pages quest, which had me diving underwater to find a book. From there, I reached Firebreeze Village, dropped every quest available, and guess what? I had to hunt Sprigrow Stalkers again, bro. I generally don't know what these lines did to deserve this, bro, but like, yeah, that's a thing. After hitting level 8, more quests opened up, so I headed back to Wretched Outpost. This time I had to kill Wretched Hooligans and Thugs, loot boxes for Cinderay armaments, and deal with some Grimsky Murlocs. But then I faced a little problem with the quest Wretched Ringleader, which took me some time to figure out what this guy was, cause I couldn't find him, and I was running around around the cliffs borders of this house, even stairs, and until I finally found him surrounded by 3 mobs. I carefully pulled one mob, which was 100 kilometers away, by the way, from the Elder and the Reckless, but of course he got pulled too, but somehow I managed to survive and take them down. And so after I completed all the quests, I went straight to the other quest, which required me to kill more Rotling Marauders. 4 Dark Wraith, and after accepting the Corrupted Soul quest, when something happened that was probably the best experience involved for me. So while I was taking the soils, I saw this undead player trying to do the same quest as me, and he got interrupted with the mob, and yeah, I definitely didn't steal him from him.
You can loot that one over there.
Thank you, Papa.
Anyways, after completing the last chapter of the quest, where I needed to kill Garsul the Remorseless, and finally getting my first level 10. With that milestone, I decided it was time to head in the Ghostlands, and on the way I looked at a random chest and ran into an undead NPC with a very questionable love story involving a half-dead blood elf. Around in the village, I once again grabbed every quest I could find, and guess what? Again, killing these lions, bro. I genuinely don't know why they so hate them. Like, what is happening? Slaying some mistbirds and accepting the quest an oxygen, which required me to heal him, which would give me my first green item. But at that time, it was too early for me to kill him. That's when I realized I hadn't even spent my talent points yet. After fixing that, I started grinding the ribbon waltz until I found a random player who agreed to help me kill an oxygen, even though he had already done it. I took him down, and honestly, moments like that are what make the game great, like these so little social interactions. And after heading to completing all other quests, then came the real pain. Arcane the Warriors, and of course Mana Shifters. And remember when I said that would be a huge problem for me? And the problem was that they were freaking draining my mana to 0, resisting every single spell that I casted, and dodging more attacks, and dodging every single time. And eventually I died. After that struggle, I continued with quests like looting Rothy Storm supplies and killing Quel'Drai ghosts, which went smoothly, but then I died a couple of times from these angry bats, to the point that my armor was broken, and again killing these night elves, which I assume is the most hated enemies, blood elves, but generally I don't know. And after completing the quest, I finally managed to fix my armor after running half dead. Eventually I made my way to Still Roman City, where I trained new weapon skills and even decided to try beaches and just watch what was happening there. I won't spoil this nonsense. At first everything was going great. I got a few kills.
I'll get some.
We captured 2 out of 3 flags, and I generally thought we will win. But after these minutes of fame, those started to happen, like Spider-Man was freaking jumping on mountains, I don't know what was that, and die a million times. And trying to get this freaking Spider-Man. And again dying. And again facing the Spider-Man. Yeah, we was now 2 versus 2 flags, and we lost of course. After that disaster, I went back to questing to relax. Killing spin Leo Lucas, and guess what? Again dying. Yeah. Phantasmal Seekers and Stonewind Slayers. I also explored a very sauce island full of night elves.
That's still recharging.
grabbed their plants, and finally got my first wins, meaning I no longer had to bomb enemies with my stuff. Back in Silvermoor, I sold some linen clothes and made enough gold to actually afford my spells. And while I was running to complete another quest, I remembered about that I could already complete my first dungeon in the Orgrimmar. So I've listed myself, and after waiting for a couple of minutes, I got invited to the party and summoned straight to the dungeon entrance and accepting some quests that I was shout with. And we started killing those molten elementals, and so everything was going very smooth. We then was fighting with this ugly looking Ragefire Chasm. At one point we took a boss I didn't even remember was a thing in the retail version of the dungeon, where we killed Flint, and my group member just decided to jump straight into the lava for some strange reason, where we found the dead corpse of my Grim Totem. But at that time I didn't understand why did we even go there, but then I understood that it was the part of the quest of Ragefire Chasm, but that was too late. Throughout the run, every fight, my mana was constantly disappearing, forcing me to drink gallons of water to recover it. And after killing I assumed the first boss, the Ragaman the Hungerer, but I got very decent braces, first blue item for me, which was a huge outbreak. Meanwhile, my teammates kept asking me for water like I was a walking supply station, since I was the mage. Then we were blasting the second boss, Ghostlands Walker, who dropped nothing useful for me. We then went up to the other layer where we killed the last boss Bazalan, who for some reason dropped nothing, I don't know why, and we managed to complete the whole dungeon, and I completed a couple of dungeon quests. And I was in the crossroad with the Orgrimmar stuff, as you can see. That because I've run the dungeon again for the second time, because it turned out that 2 quests was not all the quests for the dungeon. And that was the time when I needed to run 1,000 kilometers to the Mongol to Thunderblow, where I completed the dungeon quest and accepted other quests, because again turned out that on the second run I did not complete all of them. And I go to Orgrimmar, where I've already found a new group, and we started to clear up this dungeon for the 3rd time. But I finally could complete the quest with the dead Tauren, which I'll talk about later. And while clearing the dungeon, the undead mage, who was constantly laughing after every kill, I don't know, and at one point he accused me of needing a strength item from the boss, even though I clearly pressed grids. That whole situation was just kinda weird. Anyway, from that run I picked up my first actual decent rope, and right after that I headed back into the Barrens to start preparing for the second dungeon, Wailing Caverns. To get ready I had to go through a chain of quests leading up to it, including testing the dried seeds, collecting fungal spores, and heading into the Rothschild to accept a quest called Raptor Horde, which, as you can probably guess, required me to gather 5 Raptor Hordes. Everything was going pretty smoothly until one of them randomly one-shot me, but after spending around 30 minutes on it, I finally managed to finish the quest. From there, I continued with the dungeon quest line, killing Oasis Snapjaws for their altered Snapjaw shells. And while turning back the quest, a random 70 level hunter ran up to me and offered 3 gold just to sign his guild petition. And of course I agreed. I mean, 3 gold is 3 gold, right? After that, I flew back to Thunderblow, posted some great BOEs on the auction house, and picked up the main quest, Leaders of the Funk, which would reward me with the powerful crescent stuff. At that point, I was finally ready to take on Wailing Caverns. So while quickly flying towards the Barrens, I quickly found the group to complete the dungeon with. And that's when I learned that in order to take the last 2 quests, I needed to climb up the mountain and then carefully jump into the little cave where I found the 2 quest killers. Once everyone was ready, we jumped straight into the portal and started to slowly clearing this out by killing the Deviant Ravages, which are not only needed for quests, but I also had to loot 20 Deviant hides, from which would be freaking challenge for me in the future. So we were slowly moving towards our first boss in the dungeon called Slendy Anaconda, who dropped serpent's shoulders, but unfortunately Unfortunately, they weren't useful for me, but I got them anyways from the grid roll. After that, we took down the second boss, Lord Cobra, who at this time dropped pretty decent rough for me, and I luckily got it. And with the new badass look, we went to the new section by jumping from this cliff and killing the next boss Crash, who dropped the total shit for our tank. And then moving towards, I also noticed our druid's nickname, and yeah, we kept pushing forward, taking out Scum, who didn't drop anything useful for me. After that, we continued deeper into the dungeon until we killed the non-elf boss and started to killing this huge ugly looking boss called Where Than the Ever Living. Surprisingly, during the fight, I wasn't completely running out of mana every few seconds, which honestly felt like a miracle. We jumped into the huge hole, which was the amazing experience. After that, we scored a tyrant while he was resurrecting the night elf called Narlex, followed our waves of the enemies like ectoplasms, and eventually faced the final boss, Mutanes the Devourer. And with that, the dungeon was complete. But the problem was that I still had 2 unfinished quests, collecting serpent blooms and David hide. So looting serpent blooms went very smooth and quick. I found all necessary flows in like 5 minutes or so. But then David hides. That was a completely different story. I probably killed more than 100 mobs. And you see, the drop rate is 80%. So on average, you get like 1 item every 1.25 kills, right? And I still needed 12 items. So statistically, that's about like 15 kills. Each mob takes approximately like from 8 to 10 seconds to kill, plus some time to find the next one, right? So it should have taken me about like 5 or 6 minutes total. Instead, it took me 1 freaking hour. And after finally going out from this scary cave, and after getting into the next one, I returned all the quests I had completed. From there, I ran back to the rocket, and then up to the mountain to a little house with the door inside, and returned the glowing shot, the item which I looted from the lost boss. And she said that I needed to go to the Thunderblow in order to deliver this shot into the hands of a wise druid. And on return, he gave me first ever shoulders. And I ain't gonna lie, getting your first shoulders in classic WoW might be one of the best feelings, cause I felt like I ruled the world. Seriously, just look at me. With the shoulders, I look like a different person, bro. And after turning in the last few quests, that was the end of the part 1 of leveling the super duper mage in the WoW Classic. So hope you guys enjoyed this video. I spent a lot of time doing it, and this is my first time ever making the WoW videos in my life. So all of that was kind of new for me, and I really enjoy playing this game as well as making this video. I'm open to your suggestions, tips and advices and so on, and of course we will continue our journey, and I hope for some huge upgrades because there is still a lot of content away. So see you in the part 2.